I mean, oh gosh, man, I feel like you're giving me way too much credit over here. I don't know if I do have that much else going on. I mean, honestly, man, I'm a big sports fan. I've been,
Nice.
I always say like sports was my way of rebelling.
I have a list of things, stories, and stuff that never got a chance to tell you. Just some little ditties and things that I thought you might want to know.
So last time I saw you guys was like in the wilderness, and now you're all just chilling on the couch. It's a very different setting for sure.
Yeah, it's a little bit cozier. A little cozy.
Probably had a little more facial hair.
Yeah,
That's
pretty much.
A lot more cigarettes, a little bit more facial hair.
Definitely that. Were those real cigarettes too? I was gonna ask that. I was wondering because there's a few of them.
They were mostly not real cigarettes. Some of them were real cigarettes, but I've totally quit smoking. So that just watching that movie makes me want to quit smoking cigarettes every time I see it. So
that's a good thing.
It had the opposite effect that I wanted initially, but then we came full circle with it. So
there you go. Yeah. So there's a positive, personal aspect that comes away from
exactly. We always try for that, yeah.
Where did you guys shoot this? It was so unbelievable. I have so many questions about like the cinematography and all of that portion of it too, but where was this shot? Because it seems like there was no humans really around. There was just you guys having whatever you wanted to do with the space and land.
Yeah. That's pretty much right. We shot it in Central Oregon and in a couple counties that I was really familiar with, that I had some family and friends there. And so a lot of it was shot on a ranch where we have a family friend. And so, the script was written really for this place just as much as it was written for.
It's a character, Jeff. It's this place. Yeah. You put these characters or this story in like a city setting or something. It's a whole different movie for sure.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, we were really lucky and I had a feeling that shooting it there, would offer a lens on, something that people hadn't quite seen before, especially, it almost feels like, some of the shots we have probably feel almost like there should be a Western being filmed there. And so to kind of just put people, regular people in regular life in those settings, I thought would be an interesting dynamic.
Charlie, is it easy or harder for you? Because I feel like it's like either you're doing a very lengthy monologue a lot of times, or you're just legit having conversations like and just being filmed. I couldn't tell apart. It was both fascinating either way, that either you're doing these extravagant monologues or you're just kind of having conversations with Jeb, like sort of Jeff, I can imagine like, hey guys, make sure you just to get to this point and have a conversation, and this is sort of the theme, and go for it. That's the feeling I got watching this, which was pretty amazing because it felt so real and like I'm spying on two regular people talking.
That's awesome. I mean, that's definitely what we were going for. We fortunately didn't improv any of it. I think all of it was scripted. Yeah. And that's just a testament to Jeff's writing. And I say fortunately because I'm not good at improv. I'm sure Jeff is very good at improving, but no, I mean, I would say the conversations were probably just the most like, easy to just slip into. And that really was what Jeb and my dynamic was like. We would just, at the end of every shooting day, while the sun was going down, we would just walk around the property we were staying on and just do the lines back and forth with each other. So I think that kind of allowed that broken in feeling to hopefully be there. But the monologue was a little stressful. I mean, I had to work on it for definitely a few days leading up to it.
That's it. I'd imagine a few months or years, with the.
I mean, Jeff helped me out with that one because he could have easily scheduled it at the beginning of the shoot, and then I would have been stressing out about it for like 2 months, knowing that it was right at the beginning. But I think it was like towards the middle or even towards the end of the shoot that we got to do that portion of the film. So I got to kind of live in the character for a little bit before I started to have to wrap my brain around that kind of big word vomit that Nate has in the film. But yeah, I mean, Jeff is the most kind of laid back, like, he's just like the least stressful. Like, he's not checking in every day, like, okay, did you learn this exact word? Don't forget this punctuation here. I think he's very open with us and trusting of all the actors to just come in and give their energy to the words. And yeah, I think we were really on the same page about what that energy was from the beginning. So I just had to make sure I learned it and didn't mess it up. But that was the main thing. Yeah.
You know what? I give both of you credit on something too. I don't know. I'm sure this wasn't a script in that case, but the beats, taking moments. I felt it. Silence is sometimes uncomfortable. I feel like films are scared of using silence and just sort of no dialogue being spoken, just people taking a moment, especially if there's conversation. I felt there's a lot of points in this film where there's just like these beats taken and like for a legitimate amount of time, we're talking like 30 seconds sometimes or whatnot. And I felt like it was so interesting because you're just not used to watching films take the time, take a moment and literally take a break in a sense. It's just always moving. And as a viewer, you pay it, you notice that and you kind of stay with like, oh, this is interesting. Like, when are they going to say something? Because it's so unusual to see. I love that aspect that you guys put that real life sort of moments of calmness and saying nothing and just a pause.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome. Yeah, that was definitely, I think that makes, as you said, like the saying nothing, I'm pretty sure in the script, I think there's probably a lot of times where I just wrote nothing for a while, and I didn't, kind of like what Charlie was saying too, like I didn't tell Jeb and Charlie to take a certain amount of time. I think it was just like take time, like it's just in the script. They would just do it as if it was a line of dialogue. And yeah, I mean, that comes just sort of from my own taste, really, that I think, like you said, like I think a lot of films are just, they're just like too fast for my taste, really. And yeah, they're just too packed full of stuff. And so we wanted the experience, I think, in some way or another to be for the audience, for them to really feel like they were a part of it. I think that's sort of what sometimes maybe films don't do is the audience member remains purely an audience member. They're watching sort of images just flash in front of their eyes. And so, but just, yeah, like you said at the beginning, kind of just spying in on two regular people. I think the silence is probably part of what helps that, is that you just kind of feel like, yeah, you maybe just are strolling along with them.
Because it's authentic. That would happen in actual conversations, We're just like, people are awkward sometimes, don't have anything to say, or take a moment to think about what they're gonna say, versus just constantly the stimulation we get in movies is like you can't even take a breath because the next line's coming, the next action's coming. Like they don't allow you to literally think, and that sort of thing. And this movie it seems like you guys have plenty of time, to get where you need to go.
Yeah, that's cool.
I like that. Jeff, I'm going to stay with you here too. I don't know how much on the cinematography you worked here, but I'm watching this and at certain points I was like, when Charlie's standing, I'm like, is this just like a green screen sort of almost, I know it's not background, because it felt like it was like a portrait. Like these characters are standing in a portrait with the background, like I was looking at the clouds if they're not moving or whatnot, and the horizon in the background is kind of like, in a sense, kind of blurry, almost like a painting. You see those mountains far off in the background. I don't know if you saw that on the lens, how it was almost like a 3D sort of image of it. It was so still and is so like a painting like that it didn't feel real. And I'm almost thinking, is this a stage with just like a backdrop, a still shot of a photo, and they're standing in it. It was unbelievable. I don't know when you noticed that, or maybe it was the black and white that allowed it to feel and look that way.
Yeah, I think, I think you're right, honestly. And I think there's like multiple layers to that answer. Like part of it is that, just going to a place like the place we shot the film, you're already halfway there. I think shooting in black and white, Alfonso, who shot the film, we talked a lot about Ansel Adams photos and just, he shot a lot of photographs in the area we made the film, or around the area we made the film. So he was sort of a natural person to look at. Yeah. And, beyond that, you also just sometimes have to get lucky. And, there were a couple times where, the clouds just set up in the right way.
Mm-hmm.
You say maybe, hey, the clouds are over there. There's a certain light happening there. Let's just tilt the camera, pan the camera over there a little bit. So, a kind of a combination of things, but honestly, we were in pursuit of that sort of surreal quality, where it felt like these guys, especially once they kind of start off on their walk, it almost does feel like they're entering, a slightly different world. And so, yeah, honestly, a lot of it just comes down to shooting in a beautiful place.
Mm-hmm. And it really captured. I loved how the aspect ratio is like a square too. I don't know, they came up at least on my computer, and I was streaming. It's just a square. It's like a little box too. And I thought that was interesting too, because it doesn't give you that sort. You lock in more to it for that little sort of square than you would if it's like a wide lens shot where you kind of can get distracted and you're more focused in. I found myself more focused in on the center of the action just by having that box.
Yeah. And that was a choice too, just I think because the film is ultimately, we get this beautiful backdrop. But at the end of the day, it is just about these two characters. And so I think there's something about that, like narrowing the focus. And I also think Alfonso and I kind of had side conversations about, sort of Westerns that we liked. And so often, or at least the more like the Westerns we're most familiar with pop culture, are ones that are shot really wide. To sort of feel really big and dramatic. And so we kind of liked that contradictory notion of actually shooting these wide expanses, but shooting them in this more chunky format. And the result is honestly still shots that to me feel, extremely expansive, especially, the way that Alfonso frames them within that square. So yeah, it was something we definitely wanted to do from the beginning.
Lots of fun experimental work for sure, and it just worked to make what you guys made. Charlie, I've been a fan of yours for a long time. I've seen so many of your films, but there's something about you as an actor. Like I can tell an actor's actor, like someone that actually does it for the craft, because to do these films, like you, Jeff knows you, this is a star in a sense, I mean, he's all over Hulu, in movie theaters, on big films. But to do something like this kind of a movie, Charlie, does it get you kind of grounded to why you do acting, for why you do it in a sense, because it's easy once you start doing the bigger budget stuff or the, blockbusters or the TV series to kind of lean that way, but you coming back to kind of the roots of acting in a sense. Will that be something you want to do throughout your career?
Absolutely. I mean, first of all, thanks for saying that, man, and thanks for saying all that other stuff. And yeah, no, I mean, honestly, this is the kind of work that connects me the most to myself from an artistic standpoint. And that was something that Jeff and I spoke about a lot going into the process, was just, I think him wanting to make something and be in charge of leading this group of people in this kind of environment with that tone and with the emphasis being on the work, and us having such a similar taste and work that we connect with. But then also for myself, before we did this, I hadn't gotten to be on an indie film set for a couple years actually. So it was definitely a return to that kind of work. And it was such a reminder for me that, of course, that's always been, the reason why I love to do it so much. And Jeff mentioned this in another conversation we were having, but it really is playing make-believe, and that playfulness that you feel when you're a little kid and you're in the woods and, you're playing Lord of the Rings, or you're playing Star Wars or Batman and Rock, whatever, that is for you. But for me, it was definitely Batman. And
there you go. I relate.
Yeah, indie film, like it allows, at least in my experience, it allows for you to openly connect with that feeling again in ways that when there's, more kind of financial pressure, and the pressure is so much on the final product and the image and how everyone's going to look at the end of the day, you lose sense of that playfulness, I feel like. And so at this point, I feel like I kind of just need to stick to making things that are much more leaning towards what this film is than anything, because for me as a person, it makes me feel the most connected to myself, but also as an artist. And it also just happens to be the work that I'm generally, the most proud of when it does come out as a final product at the end of the day. But yeah, I think it always comes back to experience for me, because that's the only thing actors really can have a say over and have control in some sense with. And for me, those indie experiences always just cater to the most collaborative experiences, for sure.
Jeff, you worked with Charlie on a short before, so this isn't the first time you guys worked, but I'm curious, what was your first impression when you met him for the first time? What do you take away? Because he seems like an interesting guy just by the roles I've seen him do and see him on screen. I kind of think he's a different kind of cat. Like, what was your first impression of Charlie when you first met him?
You got to do this now.
No, I've been waiting years to hear this.
That's right. Right. Well, no, I mean, the way that Charlie and I got connected is interesting. That I had written a little short. I was in film school at NYU, and I said to a mentor of mine, I said, "Hey, I know this sounds maybe a little silly, but this film is about a mother and son. I kind of think I should cast a mother and son." And she goes, "Oh, I actually have somebody in mind." So she connects us via email, and I see Charlie's name come up, and I go, "This guy's not going to do this."
I can imagine.
I also had friends that were in Lean on Pete, and Charlie had just sort of finished wrapping that film. I was living in Portland at the time, so I knew who Charlie was.
Yeah.
And I think probably Boardwalk, just like that would have been the thing where I would have seen like a 14-year-old Charlie be in that stuff. But so there was just sort of some odd serendipity to getting connected in the first place. Honestly, yeah, I mean, we were lucky that we connected, I think, from the very beginning, just on a similar like sensibility and taste in movies and a way of going about making a movie. And that's why we've stayed friends and why we wanted to do this film. But honestly, when we made the short, I think one of the things that really struck me, and this is really specific, was honestly, it's not, and I'm not like trying to claim anything about his acting style or like a sort of method sort of thing, but we shot the film in this high school, in like the middle of the night, and he and I would just be having conversations as Jeff and Charlie, and they'd be like, "Hey, I think they're ready. You want to go do this scene?" And then in the walk from the locker room, like where we were like stationed and like had everything set up to like where we actually were shooting, I would just like very subtly watch a 30-second transition that by the time I was like, "All right, let's do it. Action." So that was something that I hadn't quite seen, just that little 30-second moment, where, yeah, I mean, this is not a complicated answer. He's a good person and he's a great actor. I would be stupid to not want to just stay involved with him. So that's really, I should have kept it simple. So
that's a great story behind it too. I like how you got to the end point here.
So yeah, no, super lucky. And honestly, it was that experience, just like making a 10-minute movie where we said, let's just try to do this again. And the pandemic plus a bunch of other projects and different things take time. And so honestly, I'm just super lucky that we got to kind of almost complete, I think, a cycle that we were both interested in completing, that, we were going to go try to make my first feature and I wanted him to be in it and I want to write it for him. And so, I'm glad that people are getting to now see what we did and how good he is in it.
Man, it worked out, just sometimes things link to each other, in wild, crazy ways. And it seems like it was meant to be, that you guys would end up working together. Charlie, I'm curious, like I'm trying to get, a better grasp now. I've watched you in so many films. What are some of your interests and hobbies outside of acting? Because I just see you as like such an actor, but I'm like, I know this guy has an actual life outside of it, probably interests and hobbies. What sort of things do you like to do in your free time?
I mean, gosh, I feel like you give me way too much credit over here. I don't know if I do have that much else going on. I mean, honestly, man, I'm a big sports fan. I've been, nice. I always say like sports was my way of rebelling, because my parents growing up hated sports and thought like it was just super toxic, and they were really into theater and, showing me like Red, White, and Blue, like that trilogy, and early Charlie Chaplin stuff. That's who I was named after. So that was very much the world I came from. And then I found sports and was like, oh, this is the furthest thing from that world. So I got obsessed with that when I was like 12. And yeah, I mean, that's definitely a hobby. But I think for the most part, it's really just like spending time with my family. My little brother, he just turned 18. He wants to be a writer, so just watching movies with him. He's like the biggest cinephile I know now, which is saying something. So yeah, just getting to spend time with him, my girlfriend, my friends. But it's very, it honestly, I know this kind of sucks to say, but it very much depends on whether I've got a job coming up or not. Because if I do, then my hobbies are usually somehow connecting to whatever that character's got going on. Like right now, I'm working on something where I'm playing this guy who's like obsessed with underground 90s hip hop. And that's like his whole identity. So I've been listening to like 90s hip hop from start to finish. I mean, from when the day starts to when the day finishes. So that's been a lot. But but if you talked to me 8 months ago, I would not have said that. So I think it's very dependent on the time and what's going on. It's also January right now. So I've been reading a lot, staying inside. I live in New York, so a lot of just staying inside and reading and just boring things.
Are you an NFL fan? Is NFL?
I am an NFL. Yeah,
man, those Giants, huh? How about that?
Those Giants, man. I know, it's exciting. I know. I went with my buddies on Sunday. I have 2 buddies who are really, really diehard Giants fans, and we saw the game, and yeah, that was very nice. I'm thinking they could make some noise in the playoffs. Honestly.
Hey, they're gonna play a bunch of NFC East teams on the way. Who better to play than the teams you know? You know what I mean? The teams you play every year, twice a year. So if you wanted to face anyone, hey, there's the chance right there against familiar rivals.
Exactly, man. Yeah, Dayball's looking like a good coach, so I'm excited for them.
Definitely,
Giants fans deserve it.
I'm a Bears fan. We're celebrating a #1 pick, so it's a lot different out here.
My other best buddy is a diehard Chicago fan, big Bears fan. I told him I'm going to be a Cubs fan now for him because I don't really have a baseball team. So,
well, they're a little bit on the up, but well, yes, take it all in with the Giants, man. This is a good time to be a football fan for sure, and. Hey, and a creative at the same time too. So
exactly, you can have it all.
Exactly. Well, awesome job, guys. This was so super cool, super interesting. I enjoy always seeing something different and unique, and this was in so many ways different and unique. And Jeff, it's cool. You know what? We live in a times that you can kind of experiment, do your own thing, an independent film. You can really create and do things differently, even though we would imagine we've seen everything by now, but there's always room to do something different. And you certainly have done it. And Charlie, I'm glad that, there's actors out there still like you, doing these indies and, and bringing these movies to life. So really good work, guys, all around.
Thanks so much, Jim.
Thank you so much, man. Such a pleasure, man.
Hey, looking forward to connect with you guys again, because I know there's got to be a trilogy of films here at least. So. Third one on the way, Jeff.
Trilogy.
Start writing, Jeff.
We'll keep our fingers crossed.
Hey, and maybe get Charlie's brother too to co-write something together.
That's right. He is a hard critic, so I gotta be really prepared if I talk to him.
I know. Check out his letterbox if you wanna. I should know his username. Give him a little shout out.
There you go. Yes, Charlie's brother going to be writing the next big indies and blockbusters. So we'll remember that.
Right. That's right.
All right, fellas. Talk to you soon then.
All right, my guy. Have a great one.
Hey, take care. Go Giants.
Peace, man.
Bye.